Welcome to the Life After Sugar podcast, the podcast that's not just about sugar, but about your relationship with it and also with food and especially with yourself. So if you want to discover your life after sugar and hear inspiring stories from all kinds of people who also cut out sugar in their way, at their pace, for their own reasons, this is the podcast for you. Because when you take away the sugar, you can finally discover the real sweetness in your life. I'm your host, Netta Gorman, and today I'm talking with Claire Stanley, who actually grew up eating a generally whole foods diet. And despite her passion for cooking, for farm-to-table dining, and her love of vegetables, Claire found that she was still experiencing health issues, including fatigue and inflammation. And so after many tests and appointments with doctors, Claire decided to go beyond conventional wisdom. And this is what she talks about in this episode. We'll get to our chat in just a minute. But first, I just wanted to tell you that if you're looking for some free resources about how to get rid of cravings, then I have plenty for you. First, download my 5 tips to get rid of cravings. And those 5 tips may not be what you think they are. So go to aftersugarclub.com and download your 5 tips today. And come check out the Life After Sugar Facebook page and subscribe to the Life After Sugar YouTube channel, as well as my Instagram account at My Life After Sugar, which is where you'll get all kinds of inspiration so that you can see that it's perfectly possible to live a happy and active life, even if you don't eat sugar. You can also check out my TikTok account at Netta_lifeaftersugar. Okay, so today I'm talking with Claire Stanley. Lovely to see you, Claire. Yeah, I'd like you to tell us a bit about your background, where you grew up, and especially what you ate while you were growing up.
Yeah, so anyways, I'm thrilled to be here. I grew up in New England. So I literally went swimming in Walden Pond. And so my parents were European. So I didn't really have the standard American diet growing up. So my mom cooked all the foods from scratch. We didn't do processed foods. We actually, I think it was like maybe an hour to drive to the nearest fast food location. It just wasn't around because everything was so colonial and historical where I lived. So I remember, picking berries and corn and apples and just really enjoyed fresh foods that were seasonal and a lot of good cheeses and just things like that. So I didn't, if I went and visited friends, homes, they might have a lot of the sugar cereals and snacks. And of course I wanted to try them and it was kind of fun, but it wasn't something that I really craved or wanted to have. I probably was more into the savory foods. And so if I was going to want a snack, it was going to be on things like nuts or cheeses and, different like cold cuts and things like that. So anyways, that was, yeah.
Yeah, and so you didn't grow up feeling that you were missing out on anything, watching your friends have all the processed snacks?
No, because I think the first bite or two was delicious, and I liked it, but then it's like, well, this doesn't taste as good as some of the treats that I have at home. And so I just never, it wasn't something that I was like, oh, I really wish I could have this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It sounds very similar to our Italian student that's staying with us this year, where he's like, yeah, I know what American food is, but it's like, it's okay once in a while, but I'm not craving it and I'm not missing it because I never had it.
Right. And I traveled quite a bit to Europe. And so I, really, if I craved anything, it was like some of the treats maybe from from there, or if like, we had like some German marzipan. So there was definitely some sweets I liked, but they were sort of not normal or native to the US.
Yes, yes, that makes sense. Okay. And then as you were growing up as a teenager, as a young adult, and then you, I guess, moved out, started making food yourself, did
Sure.
that, yeah, did that habit continue of eating mostly whole foods, cooking from scratch, and so on?
Yeah, it did. I just really enjoyed that. I also grew up loving to cook. And so it was kind of nice when I had the opportunity to do that and start learning, teaching myself how to cook and do that. And then the other thing was, I think around this time, there was the start of what was referred to as like health food stores,
Mm,
and food co-ops. And I just loved walking around those kinds of places and looking at all the different foods and different kinds of things that were there. So that was the type of thing that would really get me going. Um, so I
yeah.
wanted to experiment, like, oh, what can I make with this?
Wonderful. That curiosity, that sense of adventure,
Yeah.
playing with foods and recipes. Wonderful. Yeah. And real foods, right? Not what
Yes.
passes for food these days.
Right. Right.
And so, did you get into the field that you're working in now from the beginning, or were you working in another field?
No, I mean the my passion for cooking and this food stayed with me throughout my life. And I was married into a restaurant family at one point. I was referred to as the vegetable queen because I was the only one who would like cook vegetables where they weren't mushy, and people were like, oh, why do you do that? So I was always tasked with bringing those sides. But no, my career, I started working in advertising in major ad agencies, huge accounts, working with like Chrysler and just big, big accounts in LA. And I was in the media department, and so it was very high pressure, very stressful. The one thing about food though was that because I was working on such large accounts, I probably ate more than I earned, and meaning I was wined and dined, and went to the best restaurants in Los Angeles. And so my appreciation of food and fine dining was still there, but it was, and so even though I was making paupers income, I got to go to like the best restaurants, which was
Wow,
fun.
what a
Yeah.
dream. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, except for the stress part.
The stress part is really kind of what my story was. I mean, it was an extremely stressful job, with deadlines and, mercurial, you know, uh, personalities and very artistic. And so there was a lot of stress from that. And then, just personal stress dealing with, I had a marriage that was, it was ending and or had ended. And I had, two kids, small kids at the time. And, at one point, my father, who had Alzheimer's, he had passed recently. And then there was a crisis at home. And about 3 months later, I just couldn't get out of bed.
Oh,
And so, from all of the different stress and all the different things, I had what was referred to then as adrenal fatigue, but it didn't make sense. And this was before, most anyone had heard of this. And so, but I was terrified because I had my own, at this point, I had my own, it was marketing firm that I was doing. I was on different boards. I was a single mom, and I couldn't get out of bed. I mean, I was just exhausted. I was covered with eczema. I ballooned my weight all of a sudden, just ballooned, and I had no idea why because I had been very fit. So that was, just coming, that took me, several years to kind of figure out what was wrong and what happened. And it really all boiled down to the stress,
mm.
but a lot of, chronic conditions came from that I
Yeah.
had to deal with.
How old were you when this was going on?
I was in my early 40s.
Okay. Okay.
So early 40s when this was happening. Yeah, I think it was about 40, 41, 42.
Mm.
And it was, so it wasn't officially, perimenopausal, but I'm sure that was coming and was sort of the straw. But it was determined that I'd been looking at thyroid forever. My mom had a very bad thyroid condition, but I wasn't given the right tests, and so it never showed up. And so, that finally was when I got the right tests. I finally found the right kind of naturopath, which was very new at the time, to help me. And so I was, told I can't have gluten, which was very new, and there wasn't really gluten-free foods. And here I am loving to cook, and it's like, wait, I eat healthier than anyone around me. How can you tell me that what and I was doing organic and all this. And even then, it's like, well, I can't eat dairy. I can't eat cheese. I love cheese, and I have the best cheese. And because I
Mm.
was I was a foodie, it's like, but I have quality here and I make sure it's good and not processed. Didn't matter. And so I had a hard time coming to terms with that as well. With the no dairy, the no soy, the no gluten, and really understanding what that meant. And so
Why,
that was the
can I
problem.
ask why, even if you're eating good quality foods, why did the naturopath say no gluten, no dairy, no soy?
Because I had a lot of inflammation. I mean, it was referred to as adrenal fatigue. They did a bunch of tests. I was showing as being very reactive to these foods. So I had food sensitivity testing done. I had hormone stress and hormone panels done, where they could see where my cortisol levels were. They could see, what I had, what is referred to as leaky gut, which was, from all the stress. And then when you have the stress, eating gluten is even worse. So I just had a lot of things to sort of recover from,
Mm.
because I had all these symptoms. I mean, I was phobic of light. I mean, I could barely handle any kind of light at this point. And so it was just, my body just couldn't handle the stress anymore. And so
Yeah,
then you have all these other issues start to happen.
gotcha. Okay. And at
Yeah.
any point did the naturopath say no sugar?
Oh, that was a given. Like, just no sugar at all. That's on the top list of no-nos. So, no sugar, no caffeine, no alcohol. And it's like, oh no, I have like this whole thing where I'm involved with wine tasting and
Oh,
collection. So it was a lot. So I had to give up those kinds. I mean, there's sugar in wine for sure.
yeah.
So, none of that. So that was definitely I think one of the first things they said was no sugar,
Hmm.
you
Yeah,
know,
I mean, that is a lot of no-nos.
and it
Did
was
it feel,
hard.
yeah, I was going to ask, did it feel like my life is basically joyless?
Over. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, my life is over. I didn't feel supported, and I was confused about it, because nowadays we didn't have Google. Well, there wasn't Google then, and there wasn't this understanding where it's become more normalized, I think, where there's these foods or they have substitutes, or there's this way of life has become more common. But at the time, I was embarrassed. I felt miserable and left out. FOMO was really real,
Hmm.
but it was very difficult to explain to others why I couldn't eat that cake, or why I couldn't have the cookies that people were bringing, or, that celebrations, or, why I had to all of a sudden avoid foods. And so it was, I was embarrassed by it. And of course, because I didn't really understand at that time really why this mattered, it didn't make sense to me.
Hmm.
It was very hard for me to stick to it, to be honest. And the thing I wish I had is I didn't have like a coach or someone to kind of help me that I could refer to, on a you know every 2 weeks, or at least even once a month. And so I felt very abandoned and confused with what felt like contradictory information. And so
Yeah.
yeah, it was very hard to stick to it.
Yeah.
Even knowing what I knew, I was like, I don't really want to stick to this, it's too hard.
Yeah. Yes, totally. And it was a naturopath that said, you know, don't eat this, don't eat that, rather than a regular doctor?
Oh, absolutely. The doctors, I went to so many, and they're just like, with the eczema, they put me on prednisone. They said, here, take this pill, which that's why I blew up in weight. And they would check my blood and say, oh no, you're fine, there's nothing wrong with you. We're clearly it's like, wait, I've gained all this weight, my face is puffy, I'm losing my eyebrows, I'm losing hair, I don't understand, this is not normal. And so I was being told, oh no, you're fine. And
Yeah.
that's that's so frustrating. I didn't feel very validated. And then even when I did find people who said, oh, this is what you have to do, I didn't feel like they explained it to me well enough. And so it was difficult because a lot of the supplements that they were telling me to do were expensive. And I'm like, I don't understand why. Or the tests I was doing were like, this is super expensive and it feels overwhelming, especially when you get the food sensitivity test back, which quite frankly weren't the right tests even then.
I want to take a quick break to say that if this is your first time here, then welcome and thank you for listening to this podcast. And whether you're new or a regular and you haven't yet rated or reviewed this podcast, could I ask you to scroll down and tap on the stars to rate this podcast and also to write a short review to let me know how this podcast is helping you in your life after sugar. I love reading your reviews. And when you rate and review this podcast, not only does it encourage me to continue making new episodes, but it also helps to share this podcast and have more people see it so that we can help more people feel better and lose weight with less sugar. So again, thank you for rating and reviewing this podcast and for spreading the word about sugar.
Some of the tests, when you're inflamed, you'll show red on everything, which is not really a true reaction to the food. It's just you're being reactive to food because of the inflammation. And so once I really understood that, when I, years and years later, I decided to go back to school. I had a sort of a lull in my career. My youngest was going off to college, and it's like, well, what are my passions? Well, holistic health became a passion because I had been so involved with trying to understand what was wrong with me. And then, taking with it my continued passion for cooking and food and farm to table. I was very involved with those movements and eating, vegetables and things like that. So I combined it and, went to IIN and became a health coach, and then found out there that there was another program I could do to get certified to be able to offer the same tests or types of tests that had helped me. And I'm like, sign me up.
Wow.
And that's really in that program, which was FDN, so where I became a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. I really got to understand what some of those tests were, and maybe some of them weren't done in the right order, understanding what was really happening to me. And so all of a sudden, a lot of this started to make sense.
Okay.
But I still remembered there has to be a better, and being fueled with the thing, like there's got to be a better way to help others with this, because I didn't, well, I'm grateful to some of the things I received and answers. It wasn't enough for me to be able to help myself fix it, because
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, I totally get that. And we do. We feel like we're sort of floating around in some vacuum trying to find answers. And, and the doctors are doing the best. I'm not saying they're useless. I'm just saying they probably didn't get any sort of nutrition training to speak of.
No,
So they can't
no.
be blamed for what nobody taught them?
Right, right. Or, they'll just say, maybe you should eat eat some vegetables. I'm like, I already do that, or exercise more. And it's like, I go to the gym every day, none of this is working.
Yeah.
So yeah,
How
it's
frustrating. How
hard. Yeah.
frustrating it is. Yes. And so then when you cut all of those things, gluten, dairy, soy, sugar, caffeine, and alcohol, crikey. Um,
I know.
yeah. So did you feel better after that?
I did. I did feel better. I was surprised. The caffeine, even now I live in the Pacific Northwest. Great coffee up here, but I do know that when I'm feeling really tired, actually cutting that out helps me feel more energetic. And it's a lot of trial and error because, I would, of course, cheat, as you would say, or slip up. And yeah, I want that cookie or I want to eat that piece of cake. And then I wouldn't feel so great, and so, but it took a lot of
Yeah.
that repeated consequences. What's the consequence of this? And
Mhm.
it's hard. I mean, if you have kids, it's not like you tell them once, oh, here's the consequence, and they
Exactly.
stop. I mean, it's a constant thing that you do for 18 plus years. And so here I was trying to change, some behavior. It was difficult to do.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, I hear
And it
you.
was difficult for my clients too. I mean, it
Yeah,
is for them.
mine too. Yes, it's just,
Yeah.
that's right. It's a difficult thing that we're doing and that we're asking the people that we help to do. And yet, it's more difficult to deal with all the symptoms that you were experiencing, I would imagine.
Absolutely. There was that. And I think once I allowed myself to be more aware, so sort of instead of having judgment on myself of when I did eat something, it's like I wanted to be more aware of like, well, why did I eat that? Like, what were the things driving me? Was it, oh, I didn't feel confident enough to deal with maybe what I thought someone might disapprove of me not eating something or not wanting to feel out of place, or was it something where I was craving something, and was it because I was really tired or because I was frustrated working on a project that I really didn't want to work on. I mean, those were times when I would have these cravings. So once I allowed myself to kind of stop and think about it, and or after I had something I knew I shouldn't have, it's like, okay, I need to remember this because next time this comes up, I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to have, where my stomach's uncomfortable or I'm camped out in the bathroom or I've got foggy brain or those kinds of things. And so I think instead of telling myself, oh, this is bad or you shouldn't do this, it was more, remembering why, being aware of why I'm doing it and figuring out what are alternatives I can do next time. And, or how did I feel when I did do this, to
Yeah,
remember that, so I don't feel the same way. And I still do this with myself, and I help my clients with that too, to let
yeah.
them know, I'm not going to judge you, but let's have more self-awareness and stop and really think about it. Is this an emotional thing going on? Are you tired? Are you thirsty? What's happening here?
Yes, yes, I do the same. It's a journey to self-discovery, self-awareness, and I would say self-compassion as well.
Very much so. That's actually in my mission. Where my mission is to help others to feel, more self-compassion and validation and empowerment with their own health. And so that's exactly what drove me to want to do this years and years ago.
Yes. And now, who do you help?
So right now, mostly who I help are sort of women like me. When I was going through this, they're typically middle-aged women, over 40 to 65. They may be approaching or in menopause and not aware of it. Typically, they're business owners or, they have high-level positions. And so the fatigue, that they're dealing with is interfering with their business. It's interfering with their life and their family. They have maybe aches and pains that they're not able to do some of the, hiking or biking or things that they want to do, or, hang out with their grandchildren. So I'm seeing a lot of that where there's these issues. They're not going to kill them at this point. So they're not deathly ill, but it's enough where it makes them feel embarrassed
Mm.
about it. And they all come to me saying, well, I know it's because I'm not eating right, or I'm not exercising enough, because that's what social media tells them. And maybe that's even what their doctors have told them. But they do feel that they're sort of being gaslit in a way where they're saying, no, your tests are fine, you're fine. Just kind of suck it up. This is what happens when you get to this age. And so they know that something's off. The thing is, most of my clients really don't. When I look at what they're eating, it's what they're eating is really not problematic. Do they, when they're stressed, do they, snack on cookies and carbs and sugar? Yes, but sometimes that tells me something. It's like, oh, well, maybe there's a gut bug going in there, where there's you know, some kind of bacterial infection, or like a candida, when I hear about sugar cravings. And so it sort of informs me these are things to look into.
Yes, yes, totally. Yes, it's not always clear cut or black or white, and it's not always sugar's fault, despite what some people may believe about this podcast. We're not here to bash sugar, you know.
Right.
It could be one of many reasons why people are feeling under par. Sugar could be, but it's not exclusively because of sugar.
No, no. I look at especially like I said, their diet is pretty decent and they already know what to do. The thing is, they may not realize that they do have at this point a food sensitivity, or because they're so inflamed, usually from stress to begin with. And then that kind of causes a cycle where where you do have inflammation in the gut and things start to happen. That it's diet alone is actually not going to resolve those issues. And so we
Yeah,
have to go a little deeper.
yeah.
And stress is definitely a big part of it, in learning how to manage it, being self-aware again about, oh, am I stressed? And here's some tools that I can use to kind of modulate that and see if that helps.
And how did you, with your stressful job, when I imagine when you changed careers, I would imagine a lot of that stress also was eliminated?
Well, ironically, because I had a sort of my main client when I was freelancing in media, went away, and about 6 months later, they came back. And so for 10 years, I was actually juggling both things at the same time. And that in itself was stressful. And then I went through a really rough, abusive second marriage, and that was extremely stressful. And so the thing is like, I would have to tell myself, well, what would I tell my clients when I
Mm,
was going through this, And so a lot of the practices were born out of experience, personal experience. I mean, I've gone through pretty much everything that my clients are going through, whether it's a family, taking care of an elder, parent and health issues or crises, or empty nesters, or kids coming home from college, the whole gamut, financial concerns, divorces, the whole thing.
hmm.
So I don't, life is messy, and
Yes.
so I don't pretend that it isn't. And it's just having the tools oh, I could see this is causing an effect, that I'm starting to feel really run down. I better sort of go into my toolbox, as you would, and sort of address this. And I've had definitely setbacks. I'm not gonna, I don't lie about that. It's like, I'm really honest. I think that's what my clients appreciate, is that I don't try to say, oh, I'm better than everyone, and I live this, sort of make believe life that's, perfect on
Hmm.
Instagram or something.
Hmm.
It's like, no, life is messy.
Yeah.
This is really, this is what you do, and you sort of just shake it off and you try again the next day, and maybe you tell yourself, I'm going to make better choices tomorrow. And so it's not about perfection. It's just, I think it's more about awareness.
Absolutely, absolutely, 100%. Yes, yes. And, a lot of what we get into, you and your coaching and me and mine, we think we're going to start talking about one subject, in my case, sugar, and we end up talking about life, you know, because it
Yeah.
may not feel like we have a choice in how we can live our lives, but we do have a certain choice in the matter. And it's really, we sort of guide people through the steps to take to live the life that they want to live. And whether or
Yeah.
not, I often say real life happens whether or not you eat sugar.
Right. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think I try to help my clients connect the dots. And so if there's something really stressful going on in their lives, like, I have several clients where their adult children are moving back in, and so their lives are being kind of tossed into disarray, and, they're stressed from that or moving or things like that. And they come to me, oh yeah, I don't feel good about, maybe they're clients I haven't been working with for a while, and they come back to me and they're like, I think something's off. And it's like, okay, so we'll figure this out and help you recover. But let's really, again, be more aware of like what's going on, and how are you responding to this? Because look, even I have to be reminded. It's like, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
So,
Yeah. We're
yeah,
only human, we're not robots.
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And so if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Well, my website is probably a great place to start. It's creativebalancehealth.com. And I offer free health discovery information consultations, 30 to 45 minutes. So you can sign up for that and schedule an appointment with me. And, when you do that, as you sign up, there'll be some health questions I'll be asking you. And then we'll see, you'll leave at least knowing into several things that you can do to kind of help yourself move in the right direction, whether you're working with someone else or me. So I do that quite a lot. But yeah, I would just say go to my website is probably the best way to go.
Fantastic. Thank you, Claire. It's been lovely talking to you. Very enlightening.
Oh, I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, loved this conversation with Claire, and just the fact that she gets that you may be doing everything right and still struggling with either cravings or your weight or health issues, and you need to go a little bit deeper to actually see what the root cause is of the struggles that you're having. Because when Claire started looking under the hood, that's when she could really get to the bottom of her fatigue and inflammation and start feeling better sustainably. And I get that it may feel impossible to get a handle on your cravings or to imagine life without all your favorite comfort foods, because who'd want to live a life like that, right? But actually, a craving free and joyful life is totally possible for you. And that's why I created the 90-day program, Freedom from Cravings Formula. It's a program that's specifically designed for women over 50 who want to get rid of cravings and feel more in control around food, especially sugar and comfort foods. In the program, you'll get step-by-step guidance and customized support through the 5-step formula that I've developed to help you get control over cravings so that you can finally live your life with more energy and fit into your favorite clothes effortlessly and feel confident in your food choices so that you can ditch the shame and embarrassment that you feel every time your emotions make you slip or fall off the wagon, and so that you never feel like you're on some kind of a restrictive diet. If you're at the stage of your life where you're finally ready to look after yourself. Let's chat. You can hop on a free clarity call with me at any time by going to aftersugarclub.com and clicking on the big green button, Schedule a Clarity Call. We'll have a quick 30-minute one-on-one chat to see if the Freedom from Cravings Formula 90-day program is a good fit for you. So go to aftersugarclub.com. Speak soon. That's it for this week. Keep in touch and see you soon for another episode.